buttons on the lower. Please look to the two buttons on the lower left of your screen. Turn off your audio and video. You should also have your video set to hide all non-video participants. This means the only people on the screen right now should be the advocates and me. Can the attorneys please make appearances?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Hutten Lopez, and along with my second chair, Ms. Sophia Nicole Bay.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We represent the plaintiff in today's case, Ms. Ethel Marks, on behalf of Jessica Marks.
Thank you. Defense?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is William Mueller, and today I'm joined by my co-counsel, Julian McGaugh.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Together, we represent the defendant in today's case, Sonny's Rooftop Bar.
Okay, does either party have a party representative they'd like to note for the record?
The plaintiff does not have a party representative, Your Honor.
The defense does, Your Honor. Our party representative is Sonny Mehta.
Good morning, Mr. Mehta.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Any pretrial matters to take care of before we get started?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to invoke Rule 603 and Rule 615, calling for the constructive swearing in, constructive sequestration of all witnesses except for party representatives.
Any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, we would also like to ask your preferences on screen sharing for the court. Would you like us to simply state for the record or ask before we screen share?
Please ask before you screen share, just so I know what's coming.
Thank you. And we also have one question on exhibits. We will be trying to enter some videos. When we're trying to enter that exhibit, would you like us to play that video outside of the view of the jury? Or would you like us to just ask if it's lay the foundation without playing the video beforehand?
Lay the foundation before playing the video. But if you need a constructive sidebar, please feel free to ask for one.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
None from the defense, Your Honor.
Fantastic. Let's get started then. We'll now hear opening statements from each party. Everyone should make sure they're in speaker view. It's on the upper right of your screen. Attorneys, please remember to mute your audio when the other attorney is speaking. I'm going to stop my video so everyone is focused on the plaintiff.
Your Honor, members of the jury, may it please the court. They served before they observed. In California, every bar has a responsibility to observe their clients. They have a responsibility not to serve minors, and they have a responsibility not to serve obviously intoxicated minors. And when they fail at that responsibility, they need to be held liable. On Sunday, March 24th of 2019, Jessica Marks and her best friend Morgan Levin arrived at Sonny's Rooftop Bar. There, they were served countless drinks, even after Miss Marks had shown symptoms of obvious intoxication. At the end of the night, the defendant let Miss Marks leave while obviously intoxicated. And at the end of the night, Miss Marks barely made it past 1,000 feet outside the bar before she plummeted to her death. That is why today the plaintiff has brought a claim of wrongful death as per the California Dram Shop Act on behalf of Miss Marks's mother. We have brought this claim for wrongful death so that no other mother has to lose another daughter, so that no other girl like Jessica Marks has to lose her life. Because on Sunday, March 24th, 2019, Miss Marks's death could have been prevented. It could have been prevented by the defendant. It could have been prevented if the defendant had observed instead of served. But that night, the defendant did the opposite. That night, the defendant served instead of observed. In order to prove our claim today, the plaintiff needs to show you three things by preponderance of evidence, meaning we need to prove to you that these three things are more likely than not true. First, we need to show you that Sonny's Rooftop Bar served a minor. Second, we need to show you that Sonny's Rooftop Bar served an obviously intoxicated minor. And third, we need to show you that as a result, Miss Marks died. For the first part of that burden, Miss Marks' birthday has been stipulated to. No one disagrees that Miss Marks was a minor on the night in question. So let's talk about obvious intoxication. Today, you will hear from Morgan Levin, Miss Marks' best friend. And she will tell you that as soon as they arrived at Sunny's rooftop bar, the defendant served her and Miss Marks. She will tell you how the defendant was aware that Miss Marks was intoxicated that night and served her anyway. For the third part of that burden, you have at your disposal pre-entered Exhibit 23. And in that exhibit, you can see that the cause of Miss Marks' death was because she was intoxicated. And who allowed Miss Marks to be intoxicated? Who kept serving her drinks even though she was obviously intoxicated? The defendant. The defendant kept serving her even though she was obviously intoxicated. The defendant let her leave even though she was obviously intoxicated. And that is why Miss Marks died. On March 24th, 2019, the defendant served instead of observed. And that is why I ask you to hold the defendants liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Opening from the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, members of the jury. They didn't see any signs, so there was no reason to stop serving. As I was listening to the plaintiff's opening statement, I found myself agreeing with a lot of what they had to say. Because we agree that Jessica Marks was served alcohol by Sunny's Rooftop Bar on March 24th of 2019. We agree that the cause of her death was driving under the influence of alcohol. We, of course, agree that what happened to Miss Marks was a tragedy. But where we disagree with the plaintiff is that Sunny's Rooftop Bar served Jessica Marks when she was obviously intoxicated, visibly drunk to the bartenders. The evidence will show that they didn't see any signs of intoxication in Miss Marks. So there was no reason for them to stop serving drinks. And that's important because the plaintiff has brought a claim of wrongful death against Sunny's Rooftop Bar. They have a burden of proof. They have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, that Jessica Marks was served when she was obviously intoxicated. But the plaintiff won't meet their burden. They won't meet their burden for two simple reasons. Let's take them one at a time. First, Jessica Marks didn't look drunk when the bartenders served her. We're actually going to call the person that served Miss Marks that night. In fact, I want to introduce you to him. Mr. Mehta, could you turn your camera on? Members of the jury, this is Sunny Mehta. He's the proud owner of Sunny's Rooftop Bar and the person that served Miss Marks that night. He's going to tell you that he's been trained to recognize signs of intoxication. Then on March 24th, he didn't see those signs. Thank you, Mr. Mehta. You can turn your camera off. Members of the jury, the only person that's going to tell you that Jessica Marks looked intoxicated at the bar is the plaintiff's witness, Morgan Levin. But that brings us to the second reason the plaintiff can't meet their burden. We can't trust Morgan Levin's testimony. See, when you go back to deliberation, we're going to ask you not just to consider what Morgan Levin says, but why she says it and whether or not you can trust her. Because the evidence will show that Morgan Levin was threatened by a lawsuit by this plaintiff that she sat down with the plaintiff's lawyers for 3 hours and that after, she changed her story about how much Jessica Marks had to drink at the bar. Now, I want to be clear. We're not saying that Sonny's Rooftop Bar made all the right decisions on March 24th, because they didn't. They served a minor alcohol. But today, the question isn't whether or not Jessica Marks was served drinks. It's whether or not she was obviously intoxicated when they served. The evidence will show that she wasn't. They didn't see any signs, so there was no reason to stop serving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Does the plaintiff have any evidence it would like to present today?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Ms. Morgan Levin to the stand.
Sure. Ms. Levin, you're constructively sworn in. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Ms. Levin.
Good morning.
I'm very sorry for your loss. I want to talk to you about the night of March 24th, 2019.
Thank you. Okay.
Ms. Levin, could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Sure. Hi, my name is Morgan Levin.
And Ms. Levin, do you know why you are here today?
I do, yeah. A couple of years ago, my best friend, Jess, we went out drinking one night and she ended up getting into a car crash. I guess I'm just here to talk about what I know.
And Ms. Levin, how long had you known Ms. Marks beforehand?
I mean, gosh, it had been a long time. We met the summer before 7th grade. I remember being so excited because she moved into the house next door to mine. And up until that point, well, I was the only girl my age on the street. So I was just really excited to have someone to spend time with. Ever since then, I mean, we've been inseparable.
Ms. Levin, when was the last time you saw Ms. Marks?
The night you mentioned earlier, March 24th, 2019. She had come down to visit me in California for spring break.
I want to talk to you a bit more specifically about that night. What were your plans on March 24th?
She was staying in an Airbnb that week. My dorm wasn't big enough for the both of us. So I went to meet her there. We hung out for a little bit and then went to a bar called Sonny's Rooftop Bar.
Ms. Levin, around what time did you arrive at that bar?
Must have been around 9 p.m.
Your Honor, could we please screen share a demonstrative of a timeline of that night, March 24th, 2019?
Any objection from the defense?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Permission granted.
Co-counsel, could you please screen share the timeline? And could you please add that Ms. Marks arrived at Sonny's Rooftop Bar at 9 p.m.? And now, Ms. Levin, what did you do once you arrived at Sonny's Rooftop Bar?
We went in and we went up to the rooftop. We got a table, like a little couch area. And then a little while later, I think we started ordering drinks.
Now, Ms. Levin, do you have any documentation of the drinks you ordered?
I mean, I think I had a receipt that night.
Would you recognize that receipt if I showed it to you?
Yeah, I'm sure I would.
Your Honor, may we please screen share Exhibit 17 constructively outside the view of the jury?
You may.
Co-counsel, could you please screen share Exhibit 17? What is before you on the screen, Ms. Levin?
That's my receipt from Sonny's Bar that night.
Does it look like a fair and accurate copy of that receipt?
Yeah, to me it does.
Does it look like it's been changed or altered in any way, shape, or form?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, we would like to enter Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Any objections?
Without objection.
It's entered.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Levin, what drinks did you have that night from that receipt?
I had about a glass of that wine. We ordered a bottle right up at the top there. I had one of those beers and one of the green tea shots at the end of the night.
Your Honor, may we please screen share a demonstrative of what Miss Marks had that night? We are about to ask Miss Levin to testify to that.
Any objections from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
You may.
So could you please screen share demonstrative? And Miss Levin, what drinks did Miss Marks order that night?
Like I said, we ordered that bottle of wine together. I saw her have some of that. She ordered those 3 White Claws, the other one of the beers, and one of those shots.
And Miss Levin, who was serving you all these orders?
Sonny was. He came up and introduced himself to us at the beginning of the night, said he was the owner of the bar.
Co-counsel, could you please move back to the timeline and add that Sonny was serving Miss Marks and Miss Levin drinks during the night? Around how many times was he taking your orders and serving you drinks, Miss Levin?
Probably came to take our order 4 or 5 times, and then brought us those drinks again 4 or 5 times.
And how was Miss Marks acting while he was taking your orders and serving you drinks?
I mean, it changed throughout the night. I mean, she seemed to get more and more drunk as she had more to drink. I mean, she was a little wobbly. She was speaking loudly. Her eyes seemed a little red, stuff like that.
Miss Levin, do you have any videos of how Miss Marks was acting that night?
Yeah, she wanted me to take a video so that she could post something on Instagram. So I took something on her phone.
Your Honor, may we please screen share constructively out of the view of the jury, Exhibit 10?
You may.
Now, does this look like a fair and accurate copy of that video you mentioned?
Yeah, at least as much as I can see, yeah.
Has it been changed or altered in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think so.
Co-counsel, could you please play that video? Oh, sorry. Could you please pause that video? My bad, Your Honor. We would like to enter this video into evidence.
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
It's entered.
Yes, Your Honor. Co-counsel, could you please?
Hi,
now-
everyone. Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a silly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. I'd like to thank the Academy, Mom and Dad, inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
Thank you, co-counsel. Miss Levin, at around what time was this video taken?
Sometime around 11, I'm not sure exactly.
And co-counsel, could you please add that around 11 that video was taken for the timeline? Now, Miss Levin, did the employees of Sunny's Rooftop Bar know Miss Marks was acting in this way?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proffer?
Sure.
Your Honor, we believe that the witness is about to testify that the employees made some comments that insinuate that they knew that Miss Marks was intoxicated that night. We would just like Miss Levin to be able to mention those comments that Mr. Mehta said.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
Ms. Levin can certainly testify to any statements that she heard, but the question as phrased, which was something along the lines of, did the bartenders know that Jessica Marks was intoxicated, calls for speculation.
Response, Ms. Lopez?
Your Honor, these servers were serving Miss Levin and Miss Marks the whole night. They were around them the whole night. We believe that Miss Levin can use her rationally based perception and based on what they said and when the servers were present to know if they knew Miss Marks was acting that way.
May I respond one more time, Your Honor?
Last response, yes.
Your Honor, her rational perception would be what she observed and what she heard the bartenders say. But for her to testify about what the bartenders knew, well, that's speculation.
Well argued on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and sustain.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Marks, did it seem like the bartenders knew what Miss Marks that Miss Marks was acting this way?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Sustained. Please reword, Ms. Lopez.
Yes, Your Honor. Miss Levin, at any point while Mr. Mehta was taking and serving your orders, did you talk to him?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to him a few times. And then, well, I remember there was this one incident on the stairs at one point, and we talked to him then.
And what did he say?
Well, Jess and I, we went downstairs to use the bathroom. And partway down the stairs, well, Jess tripped and kind of stumbled into Mr. Mehta. I remember he turned to the other bartender and said, "We might need to cut this one off."
Around what time was that?
Probably around 10.
Co-counsel, could you please add that to the timeline? And Miss Levin, did Mr. Mehta say anything else that night?
Yeah, he did. A little while later, he came over to our table, pointed at Jess and said, "We might, I hope this one's not driving."
And Miss Levin, at around what time did you leave the bar that night?
Not too long before they closed. I mean, I think it was 11:45.
And you just said Mr. Mehta needed to cut you off. At what point did he cut you off?
He didn't, ma'am. He never cut us off.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Levin.
Good morning, sir.
Ms. Levin, I want to start by talking about how much Jessica Marks actually had to drink that night. And he told us on direct examination that Jessica Marks had a beer, 3 White Claws, a shot, and the rest of the wine, right?
I think so. I mean, that's what she ordered.
So a beer, 3 White Claws, and the rest of the wine, that's 6 drinks?
That sounds right, sir. I mean, I'm not sure how many of those she finished.
Your Honor, permission to display Exhibit 23. It's already in evidence.
Granted.
Ms. Levin, you spoke with the police the night of March 24th, didn't you?
Yeah, after she crashed, I spoke with them for a little bit.
The police asked you how much Jessica Marks had to drink.
That's true.
You didn't tell the police that she had 6 drinks, did you?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't remember exactly what I told them.
I'll show you. You told the police that she had 3 drinks, didn't you?
Yeah, I guess I must have.
Let's talk about what happened in between you telling the police that Jessica Marks had 3 drinks and you telling the members of the jury that she had 6. Ms. Levin, the plaintiff threatened you, right?
Objection, Your Honor. This question
Response.
calls for speculation.
Yeah, I was going to ask what grounds and then a response. Sorry. Response, Mr. Mueller?
Your Honor, this is cross-examination. If she doesn't know that she was threatened by the plaintiff, she can testify to that, but we have a good faith belief that she was.
Response to that, Ms. Lopez?
Your Honor, we have it on a good faith basis that Miss Levin was never threatened, and we believe that this question saying that Miss Levin was threatened is speculation in itself.
I'm going to overrule it for now, but Ms. Lopez, if you feel like the issue continues, please feel free to re-raise your objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Levin, the plaintiff threatened you, right?
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, the plaintiff threatened to sue you, didn't she?
Yeah, just as mom said she was going to sue me. That's true.
The plaintiff said it was your fault that Miss Marks died, right?
Yeah, she said that right after Jess died.
You didn't want to be sued by Miss Marks's mother, did you?
I mean, no, of course not.
So you ended up speaking with the plaintiff's lawyers, right?
Yeah, I went and talked to them about what happened. That's true.
You spoke with them for 3 hours, right?
That sounds right. Yeah.
I want to make the timeline here very clear. Before speaking with the plaintiff's lawyers, you told the police that Jessica Marks had 3 drinks, right?
Yeah, sir. On the night she died.
After speaking with the plaintiff's lawyers, you told us that she had 6 drinks, right?
Yes, sir.
Before speaking with the plaintiff's lawyers, you were being threatened with a lawsuit.
Not when I was talking to the police. No, sir.
Well, before you were threatened, before you spoke with the plaintiff's lawyers, you were being threatened with a lawsuit, right?
Your Honor, more prejudicial than probative, 403.
Response?
Your Honor, this goes to the bias of the witness.
Your Honor, if I may,
Sure.
this story the defense is trying to concoct is ridiculous, Your Honor. Miss Levin testified that that she spoke with Miss Marks's lawyers, yes, but at no point did she insinuate that they that because of her lawsuit she changed her story or anything.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Sure.
I'm just clarifying the timeline of events here, which is that before Miss Levin spoke with the plaintiff's lawyers, she told the police that Jessica Marks had 3 drinks. And then after she spoke with the plaintiff's lawyers, she had 6. Before she spoke with them, she was being threatened with a lawsuit, and after, she wasn't. That's certainly probative, and it's not more prejudicial than probative.
Your Honor, if I may.
No need. I think you've made your point, counsel. So I'm going to sustain Ms. Lopez's objection. Please move on.
Yes, Your Honor. Finally, Miss Levin, I want to be very clear about what you can tell us about Jessica Marks's behavior that night and what you can't.
Okay.
You told us that Miss Marks, she had signs of intoxication, right?
Yes, sir. She seemed drunk.
Bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, things like that.
Yeah.
But Miss Levin, you can't point us to a single instance where Jessica Marks was displaying those symptoms in front of the bartenders.
I guess not.
You can't point us to a single instance where she had bloodshot eyes in front of the bartenders.
No, sir. I don't really remember a specific instance like that.
You can't point us to a specific instance where she was slurring her speech in front of the bartenders.
I don't think so. I mean, she was acting that way all night.
Bring you back to my question, that's a yes.
Yes, sir. I guess I can't remember a specific instance.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. I would ask if there was redirect, but my understanding is the plaintiff has run out of time. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the defense's case in chief. The plaintiff rests, yes?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff rests.
Okay. Does the defense have any evidence it'd like to present in today's case?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Sunny Mehta to the stand.
Sure. Mr. Mehta, you're constructively sworn in.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Mehta.
Good morning, sir.
Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Oh, my name's Sunny Mehta. I'm a former bar owner. The bar was called Sunny's Rooftop Bar. It was named after me.
What do you currently do for a living?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm currently working on my next business.
Mr. Mehta, how did you get involved in today's case?
Well, I was working at my bar on March 24th, 2019. That was the night that Jessica Marks tragically died.
before we talk about what happened on March 24th, I want the jury to get a sense of your experience as a bar owner. As of March 24th, 2019, how long had you owned Sonny's?
Well, I bought the bar in February of 2017 from a guy called Nathaniel Warner. So that means as of March 2019, I'd owned it for 2 years. I had plenty of experience, sir.
In addition to owning the bar, did you also serve alcohol to guests?
I did, sir.
Do you have any training on how to recognize signs of intoxication in someone that you serve?
Yeah, I do. As a bar owner, you have to be trained in how to recognize signs of intoxication in customers.
Where did you learn to recognize those signs?
Well, I took a state mandated course in California.
What are some of the symptoms that you look for?
Well, there's a lot of symptoms, but some specific ones include bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, lack of hand-eye coordination, spilling drinks, trouble walking, being difficult to understand. There are more, but those are the main ones, sir.
I want to talk about what happened on March 24th of 2019. When did you first see Miss Marks that night?
Well, I first saw Miss Marks around 9 p.m.
Was anyone with her?
Yeah, she was with a friend. I didn't know her name at the time, but I later learned her to be Morgan Levin. She just testified.
When Miss Marks walked into your bar, what was her demeanor?
Well, she seemed normal. She seemed completely fine and completely sober to me.
Who served Jessica Marks that night?
I serve Jessica Marks, sir. I'm the server for most of my customers.
You remember how many times you served her?
Well, from my recollection, I'd say around 4 to 5 times.
And over the course of the whole night, how many times would you say you interacted with her?
I believe it was around 8 to 10, so I had plenty of opportunity to see that she looked completely sober, sir.
I want to talk about whether or not you saw any of the symptoms you were taught to look for in those 10 times you saw her. Your Honor, permission to display a demonstrative aid on the screen?
Any objection from the plaintiff?
No objections, Your Honor.
Granted.
Mr. Mehta, in any of the 10 times that you saw Jessica Marks that night, did she ever have bloodshot eyes?
Oh, no, she did not, or else I would have cut her off.
Was she ever slurring her speech?
Oh, most certainly not, sir.
Did you have trouble understanding her when she gave you her order?
Oh, excuse me. No, she wasn't. I did not have any trouble understanding her.
Did you ever see her spill drinks?
That never happened.
Did you ever see her have trouble walking?
No, she was walking in a straight line. I never saw her become wobbly or stumbly or any of that.
Mr. Mehta, to be clear, did you ever serve Jessica Marks when she looked intoxicated to you?
No, of course not. I didn't see any signs, and that's why I didn't stop serving.
Mr. Mehta, I want to address some claims that were made earlier in trial. Were you here when Miss Levin spoke to us?
I was, sir.
Did you hear Miss Levin testify that Jessica Marks stumbled down the stairs in front of you?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you hear her testify that you said, we might need to cut this one off?
I heard her say that.
Did either of those things happen?
Oh, no, sir, they didn't. Jessica Marks never fell down the stairs in front of me. I don't know why Morgan Levin would say that.
Did you hear Miss Levin testify that you pointed to Jessica Marks and said, I hope this one's not driving?
I heard her testify to that, yes.
First off, did you say that?
Well, I did, but I wasn't referring to Jessica Marks. In fact, I was looking at Morgan Levin when I said that.
Why were you referring to Morgan Levin?
Well, sir, Morgan was the one who seemed buzzed to me, and not Jessica. Morgan was having trouble walking. She was the one who had bloodshot eyes. Sir, to me, Morgan looked buzzed.
Finally, Mr. Mehta, I want to circle back to what you did and didn't see at the bar that night. Were you here when the plaintiff showed us a video of Jessica Marks?
I was here, yes.
Were you at Jessica Marks's table when that video was filmed?
No, sir, I wasn't. I had 20 other customers that night. I had to take the other customers' orders, serve them drinks, process their payments, clear their tables. Sir, I had a job that night, so I did not see that video.
At any point on March 24th of 2019, did you see that video?
Oh, no, sir, they never showed it to me. The first time I saw that video was at my deposition more than a year later.
Mr. Mehta, I want to be very clear. Was Jessica Marks ever acting like she was in the video when you served her?
No, sir, I never saw that.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Your Honor, I've got no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Mehta.
Good morning, ma'am.
Mr. Mehta, you were around Miss Marks and Miss Levin the whole night.
I guess you could say that. Yeah, 2.5 hours.
You were taking their orders?
I was taking their orders, but as I stated on direct, I was taking 20 other people's orders as well.
And you were serving their drinks?
I was serving them drinks, that's correct.
You were at their table at least 10 times that night.
Well, 8 to 10, so around that range.
And you've been present during the whole testimony this trial.
Yeah, I have. I'm the party representative.
Now, Mr. Mehta, you saw a video of how Jessica was acting that night, correct?
Oh, well, I never saw that video when I was on March 24th, 2019. I saw that video on trial, but just to be clear, I never saw that video on that night.
Co-counsel, Your Honor, could my co-counsel please screen share Exhibit 10?
Any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Co-counsel, could you please screen share Exhibit 10 and could you please play the video?
Hi everyone, Morgan and I are in Hollywood. We're at a bar. It's kind of like a Philly bar, except everything is really, really expensive. $10 for a seltzer. And everyone here wants to be a model or an actress. I'd like to thank the Academy. Mom and Dad inspired me. Okay, well, go big or go home.
And now in this video, Mr. Mehta, you can hear Miss Marks slurring her words.
I'm not sure if I would say that, but I mean, some people might think that, but personally, I didn't think she was slurring her words from that video. Maybe I was a bit concerned if I saw that video, but as to specifically slurring her words, I don't believe I have said that.
And in that video, you can see Miss Marks display uncoordinated movements.
No, I don't know about that. I just, no.
And in that video, you can see Miss Marks kind of struggle over what drink to pick up at the very end.
Well, I can't read Miss Marks's mind, so I'm not sure if she was struggling. Maybe she just thought she was going to have this drink, but then decided on the other. I'm not sure what her state of mind was like.
Mr. Mehta, when you were shown this video before, you said that Miss Marks looks like she could be drunk.
Could be. It's a possibility, sir, or ma'am.
Right, it's definitely a possibility.
You could say that it's a possibility.
But it's your testimony that Miss Marks never acted that way at March 24th, 2019?
Not that I saw, ma'am. I had a job that night. I was serving other customers. I never saw Miss Marks act that way.
Now, Mr. Mehta, you remember talking to a police officer March 24th, 2019?
I believe so.
Co-counsel, Your Honor, may we please screen share Exhibit 23? It's been previously entered.
If it's already in evidence, I have no issue with that.
Co-counsel, could you please screen share the exhibit and move into the highlighted portion? Mr. Mehta, I'm going to read part of that exhibit. Could you please read along silently?
Yes.
The police officer said, Sonny said that Jessica Marks was a typical buzzed girl. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly. That's what the police officer wrote in this statement.
So you saw Miss Marks be at least a typical buzzed girl?
Yeah, buzz, not intoxicated. There's a difference.
But it was your testimony just now that you saw no signs of intoxication at all in Miss Marks?
That's right.
Now, Mr. Meta, I want to talk about what you tell us you observed and what you didn't observe that night.
All right.
Your Honor, may my co-counsel please screen share a demonstrative of what Mr. Meta observed that night?
Any objections?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
You may.
Now, Mr. Meta, you observed how many drinks you served Miss Marks's table.
Yes, I can't remember which specific drinks were served to which specific person, but I do remember those drinks that were served. That's correct. They were on the receipt.
You remember you served her table a bottle of wine.
That's right. It was decoy.
You remember you served her table 3 White Claws.
3 White Claws, 8% alcohol.
And you remember you served her table 2 beers.
1 IPA can and 1 draft. That's right.
And you remember you served her table 2 shots.
2 green tea shots to be exact. Yeah.
And throughout the whole time you were taking Miss Marks' order, Miss Marks was ordering her own drinks.
I believe so.
And you were serving each of the drinks to that table.
I was serving her drinks. Yep.
Co-counsel, could you please add on to the demonstrative that Mr. Meta saw and observed what he served to that table? Now, Mr. Meta, you also observed that Miss Marks was around 5 feet tall.
I don't like to judge someone's height, but I believe you have that right.
Co-counsel, should you please add that to the demonstrative? And Mr. Meta, you also observed that Miss Marks weighed around 110 pounds.
I mean, again, I don't really like to estimate what weight someone is, but if I had to guess, that would be it.
Right, that was your estimate that night.
It was.
Co-counsel, could you please add that to the demonstrative? And Mr. Meta, all these 3 things put together, they didn't concern you?
I mean, no.
They didn't ring any warning bells in your head?
Nope, but for Morgan Levin, they did.
They didn't hint that you should observe Miss Marks a bit more closely?
Nope.
Now, Mr. Meta, in the video I just showed you, you observed that Miss Marks could be drunk.
I mean, could be, but again, I never saw that video.
Co-counsel, could you please add that on to the demonstrative? And Mr. Meta, that night, March 24, 2019, you observed that Miss Marks was at least buzzed.
Buzzed, yes, but again, buzzed is a large difference from a visibly intoxicated man.
And Mr. Meta, you agree that the video I showed you was taken on Sunday, March 24, 2019?
Yeah.
You agree that that video was taken in your bar?
I believe it was. I saw the background of that video.
And you agree that it is your job to observe your clients for any signs before you serve them?
I mean, sure, yeah, I've done that a lot. I observed Morgan Levin, ma'am, and I thought she shouldn't be driving, so I made sure she wasn't.
No further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything on redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Mr. Mehta, Ms. Lopez just asked you about how you said Jessica Marks was buzzed.
Mhm.
What do you mean by that?
Well, buzzed as in not intoxicated. Buzz is a very, very mild form of things. And, if you had to cut someone off every time they were buzzed, nobody could have a second round of drinks. So everyone's buzzed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Sure. Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests its case in chief.
Okay. Are both parties ready to proceed to closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff is ready.
The defense is ready as well.
Okay. We'll now hear closing arguments from both sides. Everyone should please switch back to speaker view. Also, since both witnesses have completed their testimony, judges, you can complete the witness portion of your ballot. I'm going to go ahead and stop my video again so everyone's focused on the orator, and then we can get started. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Lopez.
Your Honor, before I start my closing, we will be sharing some demonstratives. Would you like to see those before my closing, or should we just do it as we go?
You can just do it as you go. As long as they're the same ones that you've used before. Are they different?
Your Honor, we believe there is one that's a bit different.
Can I see that one?
Yes, Your Honor. Co-counsel, could you please screen share our demonstratives for the closing? So that is one of them about the plaintiff's burden. And then we also bring up Exhibit 23 again, a different part of it though, Your Honor. Could you please go into the highlighted portion, co-counsel? We show that part as well.
Okay, sounds good. No need to ask permission every time you show these. Just go ahead with your closing.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, opposing counsel may it please the court. They served instead of observed. I want to start by telling you why we are here today. We are here today because in California, every bar has a responsibility to observe their clients. They have a responsibility not to serve minors, and they have a responsibility not to serve obviously intoxicated minors. And when they fail at that responsibility, they need to be held liable. We are here today on behalf of Miss Marks's mother to make sure that the defendant is held responsible so that no other mother has to lose another daughter, so that no other girl like Jessica Marks has to lose her life. We are here today because on Sunday, March 24th of 2019, the defendant could have prevented Miss Marks's death. They could have prevented Miss Marks's death if they had observed instead of served. But that night, they did the opposite. And that night, the defendant served instead of observed. Today, we as the plaintiff brought a claim of wrongful death against the defendant, according to the California Dram Shop Act. And in order to prove this claim to you today, I told you that there were 3 things we needed to show you by preponderance of evidence. 3 things that we needed to show you are more likely than not true. First, we need to show you that Sunny's rooftop bar served a minor. And no side disagrees to this. Second, we needed to show you that Sunny's rooftop bar served someone who is obviously intoxicated. And third, we needed to show you that as a result, Miss Marks died. So let's talk about obvious intoxication. You heard today from Miss Marks's best friend, Morgan Levin. And she told you that she was there that night. She told you how the defendant kept serving and serving and serving Miss Marks drinks. And she told you how the defendant was aware that Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated and kept serving her drinks anyway. And Your Honor, members of the jury, the defense brought Sunny Mehta to counter that claim. But a lot of what they said doesn't make sense. And Mr. Mehta first claimed that there were no signs of intoxication in Miss Marks. But that night, he'd called Miss Marks a typical buzzed girl. Buzzed means some sign of intoxication. That means there must have been some sign of intoxication. So his story changed as well. He also conceded on cross that video, that in the video, in Exhibit 10, Miss Marks looks like she could have been drunk, that he would have been concerned if he would have seen Miss Marks acting that way. Nobody disagrees that that video was taken on March 24th, 2019. And nobody disagrees that that video was taken at Sunny's rooftop bar. And nobody disagrees that the defendant served Miss Marks drinks in between that video was taken. Now, members of the jury, in a moment, you will be read the jury instructions, and I want you to pay attention to one specific thing. You will be told to look at all the evidence in light of your own experience in life. Now, Mr. Mehta claimed that he didn't observe any signs of intoxication, but you saw the video. You saw that Miss Marks was acting obviously intoxicated. Something doesn't make sense. Miss Marks, someone doesn't go from acting obviously intoxicated to completely fine in a matter of seconds. Someone doesn't go from acting like they were in that video to completely fine when the defendant shows up randomly. That doesn't happen. But let's say the plaintiff were to concede that point, let's say Mr. Mehta was telling you the truth. Mr. Mehta and Sonny's rooftop are the defendant is still liable. Let's talk about what obviously intoxicated means. Obviously intoxicated means that any reasonable person would have known that Miss Marks was too drunk to continue to drink that night. Now, the defendant is still liable if they did not observe those signs, because it was their job to observe those signs. Again, you saw the video, you saw the signs, you saw Miss Marks acting obviously intoxicated. Miss Levin saw Miss Marks acting obviously intoxicated. The only person who didn't see Miss Marks acting obviously intoxicated was Mr. Mehta. And if he didn't observe those signs, if he didn't observe those signs that were so clearly there, he was not doing his job, because it is the bar's responsibility to observe before they serve. But that night, they served instead of observed. Now, I want to talk to you about the last part of the plaintiff's burden. Please look to my left at Exhibit 23. And if we zoom into that highlighted portion, we can see that an officer at the scene of the crash that night testified to a reasonable degree of professional certainty that Miss Marks's death was caused by her being intoxicated. And who allowed Miss Marks to get intoxicated that night? Who continued to serve Miss Marks drinks when they were obviously intoxicated? The defendant. The defendant kept serving Miss Marks drinks even though she was obviously intoxicated. On March 24th, 2019, the defendant could have prevented Miss Marks's death. But that night, they didn't. That night, they served instead of observed. And that is why I ask you to hold the defendant liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, members of the jury. It's a Sunday night back in March of 2019 at a bar over in West Los Angeles. A woman named Jessica Marks is going out to celebrate the end of spring break. She walks into the bar, takes the stairs up to the rooftop, and sits down at a table where she's served by the bar's owner, Sonny Mehta. Over the course of the night, Mr. Mehta comes up to her table 10 times. And like with all his customers, he's looking to see if she looks drunk. Members of the jury, over the course of the whole night, out of the 10 times that he went up to her table, he didn't see those signs. He didn't see any signs. So there was no reason to stop serving. Now, the plaintiff has brought a claim of wrongful death against Sonny's rooftop bar. They have the burden of proof. They have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not, that Jessica Marks was served when she was obviously intoxicated. They just didn't meet that burden. And they didn't meet that burden because of two simple reasons. First, Jessica Marks didn't look drunk when the bartender served her. And second, we can't trust Morgan Levin's testimony. Let's take those one at a time. First, Jessica Marks didn't look drunk when the bartender served her. We called Sonny Mehta to the stand, the owner of Sonny's rooftop bar and the person that served Miss Marks that night. He told you that he's been trained to recognize signs of intoxication in his customers. But that on March 24th, he didn't see those signs in Miss Marks. He told us that out of the 10 times he served her, she never had bloodshot eyes. She was never slurring her speech. She wasn't hard to understand. She wasn't spilling drinks. She didn't have trouble walking. But you didn't just hear that from our witness. You heard it from the plaintiff's witness too. Remember the cross-examination of Miss Levin? Miss Levin was forced to admit that although she claims that Jessica Marks looked intoxicated inside the bar, she can't point us to a single instance where those symptoms were being displayed in front of the bartenders. So what evidence did the plaintiff present? They showed you a video. Members of the jury, with how much they've talked about this video, with how much they've tried to convince you that this video is proof that the bartenders knew she was intoxicated, you'd think that Sonny Mehta was the one holding the camera filming. But he wasn't. We learned that he wasn't there when this video was taken. We learned that she wasn't acting like this when he served her. Now the plaintiff, they want you to think that doesn't make sense. That if she was acting the slightest bit intoxicated at any point that night, she would have been acting intoxicated when the bartender served her. But consider the circumstances of that night. Jessica Marks was an underage girl, a minor. She snuck into that bar. She was there illegally. She would have every reason to not bring attention to herself, to act as sober as possible when the bartenders served. Members of the jury, the only person that told us Jessica Marks ever looked intoxicated that night was Morgan Levin. That brings us to the second reason the plaintiff can't meet their burden. We can't trust Morgan Levin's testimony. Now, the timeline here is absolutely crucial. On March 24th of 2019, minutes after the crash, the police asked Miss Levin about what happened that night. They asked her about what happened in the bar, and they asked her about how many drinks that Miss Marks had, excuse me. She didn't tell the police that Jessica Marks had 6 drinks like she told us today. She didn't tell the police that Jessica Marks was stumbling around the bar. She told the police that she had 3 drinks. Members of the jury, there's no nice way to say this. Her story has changed. Her story has changed from when she spoke with the police to when she spoke to us. That's not the only reason we can't trust Ms. Levin's testimony. So remember what Mr. Mehta said? It was Morgan Levin, not Jessica Marks, that he was concerned about. It was Morgan Levin, not Jessica Marks, that had bloodshot eyes, that was slurring her speech. It was Morgan Levin, not Jessica Marks, that seemed drunk. And that leaves us with a critical question. Who do you believe more? Their witness, whose story has changed after being threatened with a lawsuit and who was drunk that night? Or our witness, whose story hasn't changed and who was completely sober the entire time? Members of the jury, if you don't believe Morgan Levin's testimony, then the plaintiff doesn't have a case. And even if you do, the plaintiff has a he said, she said. But here's where it's so important to understand their burden of proof. If you think maybe Morgan Levin's telling the truth and she did look intoxicated that night, well, then you must find in favor of the defense, because maybe isn't enough. If you think possibly, it's possible that she was obviously intoxicated when they served her, then you must find in favor of the defense, because possibly isn't enough. They had the burden of proving their case to be more likely true than not, to be more likely true than ours, and they haven't met that burden. They haven't even come close. Members of the jury, Jessica Marks wasn't obviously intoxicated when the bartenders served. They didn't see any signs, so there was no reason to stop serving. That's why we ask that you find Sonny's Rooftop Bar not liable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Ms. Lopez, anything on rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe we have around 30 seconds left.
Okay, short and sweet. Whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, members of the jury, may it please the court. The only person today who told you Miss Marks was not obviously intoxicated that night, that was Mr. Sonny Meadow. Consider why he might be telling you that. When you heard another witness and a video show you that Miss Marks was clearly, obviously intoxicated that night. That it was so clear that Mr. Mehta must have observed the signs. And even if they didn't observe those signs, they should have. A reasonable person should have. You can have doubts. It just has to be more likely than not probable that Miss Marks was obviously intoxicated when she was served that night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez, and thank you to both advocates today. So judges, please complete your ballots and click submit. I'll ask everyone to stay on until everyone has submitted their ballots, then we'll do very brief comments.